Wrong channel. What is up, everybody? I am the cosplaying alchemist, not the archery alchemist. He'll be making an appearance sometime next week. With me, I have an amazing human being, an amazing person named Alf Gregg. Say hello, Alf.
Hello, Alf.
So, Alf, how did you start? Well, first off, what's your background for camping?
Background for camping. I was never a camper, and I started. It goes back in time, about 1964. I came to camp where we are today, Cedar Ridge Camp, and I started as an LIT. And my first experience in the first session was going on a 17-day canoe trip. And what was really amazing about that was I'd never been in a canoe before. So that was quite an experience for me. I was very fortunate. The last session of the summer, I went to Bark Lake, which is the provincial training leadership center for the province. And it was really interesting because I passed the swimming test, but when it came to canoeing, since I hadn't had much experience, we had to go out solo in the canoe, and we had to go around a raft and bring it back in again. Well, I got the canoe in the water okay, and I started paddling, and as I started paddling, the wind caught me. And as it caught me, it started blowing me down the lake away from the raft. And during that time, a few others had gone out doing the test and made it around the raft, and the instructor finally said, "Bring that canoe in here." So I managed to get the canoe turned around, and I managed to be bringing it back. And when the person that was in charge pointed at the dock, landed here, instead of away from the dock, I thought he meant on the dock. So anyways, I started paddling, and all of a sudden I went over the dock, and he went off the other side of the dock. So that was sort of my first year being involved, that I remember being involved in camping. And then after that, I came back as a junior counselor, senior counselor, waterfront director, out trip director, and overall program director. So that was my start at Cedar Ridge Camp.
Well, it wasn't called Cedar Ridge at the time then.
No, it was Camp Wangoma. It was run by East York YMCA. It started in 1956 and ran as a camp until 1973. From 1973 to 1980, it was utilized as a camp where people could rent out and come in and do their programs. And then in 1980, it was sold to a group, a local pastor in the church in Bancroft. They purchased the camp, and of course there were several denominations related to that particular church, and so they had strong support at the time. And it was basically training people to go to Asia as missionaries. And eventually they did have a camp here. They ran it as a camp. And then eventually the person in charge died, and it became a little bit of a trailer camp. But in 2005, Peter and Grayson were involved. Peter purchased the camp, and Grayson became the first camp director.
So earlier you said you were an LIT. For those who don't know, what is an LIT?
LIT is a leader in training. It's what we call, well, that's leader in training they use now. Back in my time, it was the CIT, counselor in training.
Yeah. And that would be counselor in training then.
That's right.
At a camp I went to once, there was a CIT and an IIT.
Was
Instructor in training.
An instructor?
Yeah.
Interesting. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, so we were called INS, honestly, and it was just really, it was an inside joke if I
Okay.
Okay. So so what do you do now? Like
What do I do now?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that. I was a part-time professor for 38 years. I taught at colleges and universities within the province, but my full-time job was with the City of Toronto Parks and Recreation. I was one of their training coordinators, and while I was doing that, I was also teaching part-time, and it was for about 38 years. What I'm doing now after COVID, I'm very fortunate. We're in the process of having a YouTube video coming out.
Oh.
We've been involved in helping the first publication from Cedar Ridge Camp. I've been involved in archiving the history of the camp here, and it started back actually in 1876, the property, but being involved as a camp, it started in 1919 in the City of Toronto as Camp Sunfish. And as the population grew in Toronto, it moved up to Innisfil, just south in Barrie. It ran there until 1954. There's a little bit of a transition year where a camp was rented, the facilities for the camp to run. And then in 1956, that's when this particular property was purchased, and it was by East York YMCA at the time.
So, looking around, other than buildings, what has changed on the property that is for the better?
I think where it's for the better is looking around and seeing where there's more clear space, utilizing the property more. For example, looking at setting up the Frisbee golf course, which utilizes
The entire.
and the entire camp, which is amazing. I think just looking at the dock that's here, the swimming dock has been replaced, and it looks great. It's a great setup.
Yeah, brand new.
A few bridges have been added to the camp, and it's just the overall appearance, keeping the cleanliness of the camp, and that means taking up any papers that are down or things that are lost. But I see it as a lot of potential to grow, but it's sort of making sure that the facilities that are here are maintained, and gradually as the camp's growing, it looks like we might be getting some new buildings that are going to be here.
And this is not the original dining hall, however. Is it?
Actually, it was built in 1962.
Okay.
That is where the spot where the dining hall. It was sort of smaller. It was used tents and that before, and but that's basically. And the other one was there was a lodge here that had a kitchen, and so at that time that was also utilized as a dining hall. But that particular arch burnt down, and so anyways, that's when we got our dining hall in 1962.
Oh. Sorry, just a plane going by, folks, so give us a second as we just ramble around. So, at camp, we have the seal of approval, standing ovations. What made you come up with those, or did you?
Well, what's of interest? The seal of approval, when I was waterfront director here in 1968, we had regattas, and we had 3 sessions, and the last day before the session, we always had a regatta. It was an opportunity for campers to demonstrate their skill, and it put it into a bit of competition. Unfortunately, one time when I was waterfront director, we had a rainstorm, heavy rain and lightning and thunder, that we couldn't use the waterfront, so we became creative and we used the dining hall. And so we developed running a swim meet without water. And in order to add a little bit of difference, creativity, that's when we developed the seal of approval by placing the backs of your hands together and going, and that was sort of encouragement, but it was also a way of showing appreciation, and it's been carried on ever since then, and many presentations that I've been involved with.
Would you say that was the start of your pun-related praises?
Yeah, or showing appreciation, yes, like putting the nail up there and saying, nailed it, or over the top. And of course, as you gradually you build on your
brand.
My brand, and you learn from other people, and now we're having a lot of fun. It's just a different way, and it's a little bit creative.
So, other than the seal approval, because it was probably one of your first ones, what's your favorite way of showing appreciation?
My favorite way is actually when I was doing a training in the beaches area with their summer staff, and we were using different ways of showing appreciation. One of the staff came up with the one. I always use this when I'm with a group, how I feel being there. And it was very simple by placing your arms straight up in the air. And these are branches of trees.
Yeah.
And then you'd say, everybody arms up. Let's see the leaves. And you see the leaves flowing back and forth. And ask the question, folks, you know how it feels to be here today? And we go, tremendous.
And one last question. So you travel the world, have you?
I haven't actually traveled the world, but where I have been, I've been very fortunate to do quite a few workshops down in the United States. But one that a few years back, I was in China for the month of June for 3 years straight. And yes, we did the seal of approval. And we also did the swim meet without water. And it was basically helping them roll out their leadership training program for camps. And so I was very fortunate. Another one, I was with Marching Bands of America. And yes, the seal came out, and we even did standing ovations. And so we've had some fun. It's been going to different places.
All right, and I know I said that was the last question, but I just have one more question.
Sure.
If you could go back to Camp Wangoma and suggest an activity that wasn't related to what it was, what would you suggest?
Well, one of the activities comes to mind that I've watched really grow here is archery.
Yeah.
And no, it's not because of Tyler. It's just that I think what you've added there with the targets and who you are, it's made an excitement. And as we could see in the dining hall, people were disappointed when the announcement was made for open program. They forgot archery, and people, whoa, wait a minute, where's archery? And so if I went back, I would like to have that opportunity to see the archery and with the creativity that Tyler has added to it.
So it's not just like the program you would add. You'd add somebody that has an enthusiasm for it.
That's the key. That's the key here is the staff that you hire. You can have all the best equipment, you can have the best environment, but it's the people that make it. And as we heard last night at the closing ceremony and testimonials coming from staff, coming from the campers, it was people, and a lot of hugs were given last night.
They were. Anyways, thank you for your time, Alf.
You're welcome, Tyler.
Is there any last words you have for the viewers?
Yes, it is. You don't know much. I appreciate this interview, and so I'd like to give Tyler the seal of approval. Ark, 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 ark. And it was over the top.
Thank you so much, Alf.
You're welcome.